Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers and sisters and viewers of IQRA TV. Welcome to another program of Real Talk, a program that tries to bring to you on week in, week out issues that members of the Muslim community and others face on a day-to-day basis. Issues around health, social well-being, policing, criminal justice, all politics, etc. So we've had a myriad of guests appearing on this program, ranging from politicians to people who work at the grassroots level around a number of issues, for example mental health as well, that we had a few weeks ago, including grooming, which apparently proved to be a very popular program. And unfortunately we've seen some more cases around grooming recently as well, as far back as 2 days ago, and maybe we might come back to that in the near future. Tonight I have two very special guests. First time they're appearing here today. One has come all the way across the Pennines, and I'm sure his passport has been checked when he crossed the borders, because we're very proud of our Yorkshire County, and we don't let anybody in unless they're very verified. And this man has got more verification than including myself. His name is Mark Minter. Mark, welcome.
Good evening.
Mark works for the Greater Manchester Police. He works for True Vision, which is a government initiative which allows people to report hate crime online. We'll talk about his work in a little while. My other guest is a local person who works locally but lives quite far away. He probably needs a passport whenever he comes into this part of the world as well. His name is Muhammad Ali. He works for the Bradford Hate Crime Alliance. Muhammad, welcome. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Again, an organization which is well rooted in the Bradford social fabric, and I'm sure he will have a lot to explain to us and tell us about his experience of working on hate crime in this part of the world. So can we start with Mark? Mark, you work on True Vision. Not many people would have heard of True Vision, despite, I know, many attempts by the government to try and promote True Vision through a number of sort of initiatives, but I think it's still an unknown quantity particularly within the BIME community. So that's why Mark is here today, to try and explain to our viewers and try and show them what True Vision, and tell them what True Vision is all about, how people can access True Vision, and what it's what's there for. So Mark, welcome.
Thank you.
I hope you had a good journey coming across the Pennines.
Yeah, very safe, thank you.
It's getting colder, so I hope you when you get back. True Vision, obviously it's an initiative that was started a few years ago.
Yeah.
I was there when it was first started. Because I'm not sure, some viewers will know, I sit on the government's independent hate crime advisory body, and have been the deputy chair since it started about 8-9 years ago, probably more than that. Can't even remember, I'm getting too old. Mark, welcome. As I say, True Vision. True Vision is a portal, isn't it?
It is,
it's a platform. I'm not an IT person, but no. So just imagine I'm an ignorant IT person. How would you explain it to somebody like me?
From one ignorant IT person to another.
I doubt it.
Yeah, so Iqbal, you're right. It's the website is True Vision, which actually that's the brand name, if you like, and it's www.reportit.org, which is where you'd find it on the internet. But the web page is there on the internet. It gives information on hate crime and all hate crime, and some specialised advice on individual parts of the hate crime. But also, as you say, there's a way there to report a hate crime to the police, and it's a portal in. And the two options on there is if a hate crime has happened to you individually in an area that's known, where a police area is identified, then you can report it direct through that True Vision website to your local police force, and it will go to them. And the other area that we're working a lot on at the minute is trying to get more people to understand and report and make us aware of is online hate crime. So the stuff that's seen online that might not necessarily be targeting an individual, but it's offensive and it's crossing the line of what we social media these days has caused a lot of problems. But it's the online world that we're trying to develop and get people to report that, so we can see what's happening and monitor what's going on.
Because I remember when Paul Gianassi, who came here the day before the Punish a Muslim Day event was supposed to take place. Fortunately, he came here the day before, and he was saying that during that time, social media played a huge role in sort of manufacturing false news, as they say, fake news, and trying to incite people across the nation. And that is a huge task that you have.
Well, in that example there, as you rightly said, there was some reports that were being attributed to that day, which weren't anything to do with it. They were some attacks from years before that were being said this is the start of that day, and then also there was one which was gang related and nothing to do with those days at all, but they were being regurgitated on social media to say this is what's happening, and those reports were being made aware to us, and we did some work around them. But also the team that we've now got, which we can go into, but the team we've now got, we were able then to go onto social media, and there was a lot of concern within the Muslim community, and rightly so, and they wasn't aware of what the police were doing in the background, but there was a lot of work going on, but it was being kept sort of quiet. But we were going on to social media ourselves, and we were sending them, sort of messages and links to update them. So the social media and getting involved in that is really taking over.
I remember very clearly that during that time, there were two particular videos that came out on YouTube or WhatsApp, etc. One was, as you say, the gang violence that took place in Sheffield. Yeah. And there was another one where a young woman was allegedly sprayed with acid. Yeah. And people were using that to say it started, Muslims are being attacked. Yeah. And they proved to be wrong, because the acid attack one happened a few years ago in India, I believe, and the Sheffield gang one happened a few months before the Punish a Muslim Day. But there were people within the community, we assume, who were trying to use that information to incite retribution and hatred within the Muslim community as well. So we need to be very careful and very cautious, when we look at social media, what it tells us, and we need to try and verify some of those issues which are being brought to our attention. I mean, just for a moment, Mohammed, welcome to IQRA TV, welcome to Real Talk, first time here. You work at the grassroots, I mean both of you do, but you work with the communities. Mark obviously works with the institutions. In your experience of working on hate crime, and as Mark says, we're talking about all hate crime, but our particular focus for our viewers is at the moment anti-Muslim hate crime, because most of our viewers are Muslim. What's your experience of hate crime in this area, Bradford area? Have you seen a rise over the last few months or the years, particularly after the Lee Rigby attack, the Charlie Hebdo, etc., the Westminster attack, etc.? Have you seen that actually taking place in the Bradford district?
There has been a rise over the last 2 or 3 years, a slow rise, and particularly post-Brexit from 2016
I was going to
onwards.
come to that, yes.
So yes, there has been a rise. And for us, particularly in terms of anti-Muslim hate, it's actually building the confidence in the community and understanding and awareness, so that people actually report the hate crime. Because what we're trying to do is make sure that people are aware that they don't just have to report it directly to the police, but there are other ways of reporting it. And then we can support those communities to actually take that further. And the support
actually, that's a very important point, because years ago, when I sat on the Stephen Lawrence group, one of the issues we looked at was about reporting and why people are not reporting. And on racist hate crime, for example, the figures were that over 70% were not being reported. Is that still the figure that you estimate to be the case? I don't know whether, Mark, you have any information around that as well.
Well, I mean, when we get our reports from the online into my team, and I've got a team of 2 investigators and we've got an analyst as well, who actually is able to look at everything we're getting and put some sort of figures around it. We also then send out a survey afterwards to try and see if we can do anything better. And actually, almost 70% of people said that if it wasn't for the facility of our True Vision, they would not have reported their incident.
Right. Yeah. So coming back, obviously, when people are were not reporting, still not reporting, because they feel that nothing's going to happen, and there's no action is going to be taken, and that was very similar to the experience around Lawrence as well, Stephen Lawrence murder, post-murder, etc. So in terms of your experience in Bradford, and one of the things was that when they were reporting it, there was no feedback coming back, and the police were not geared to provide that feedback. So there was this third-party reporting centres being established all over the country, and you're a third-party reporting centre. So you're saying you have the facility to follow through with the case. Right.
So we actually manage and coordinate the reporting centres in the district.
Right.
So we coordinate about 30 reporting centres across.
That's in the Bradford district,
in the Bradford district, Bradford, Shipley, Keighley, Bingley. And then what we do is, and the report centres are very much community-based, so where the community members will go. So for example, one of them is the Khidmat Centre, Bradford Council Mosque, because we know a lot of the Muslim communities will go there. So we try and find, so for example in Keighley, the Keighley Women's Centre. So again, a lot of communities go there. So that way we know the communities will have access to those facilities. And then where they cannot get any feedback from the police or wherever else, we will sort of liaise on their behalf for the hate crime coordinators within the community.
So you act as the advocates?
So we act as advocates,
Right.
get the information, and also try and make sure that that follow-up is happening in terms of what needs, but also any further support they need. So whether they need support from any specialist agency or from us, we will support a victim right from reporting the incident all the way through to court if that's what the victim needs. If they don't need that, then that's fine. Some victims may need very little support, other victims will need a lot of support.
Right. So you actually walk the victim through the whole of the criminal justice process, including in the courts as well?
Yeah, we had one case recently where the support worker actually went to court with the victim.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And what type of cases do you get?
Anything and everything. So this one that went to court was a physical attack on a public transport.
Right.
To verbal abuse, to violence, to a whole range of the graffiti, whole spectrum of incidents that will come through. And they'll come through in different ways. We work very closely with the police. So we have an online reporting system that the reporting centres use, but also self-referrals as well, so general members of the public can use. And they automatically go to us and the police, and we will, between us.
So even if they report you to the police, you would get sight of it as well?
We will get sight of it as well.
Right, so you can then follow up?
Yeah, and also the individual has a choice whether they want police involvement or not. So if they don't want police involvement, they can specify, we don't want police involvement. And then the police won't follow that up. But where they do specify they want police involvement, police will follow it up.
And I assume that's the same with True Vision, isn't it?
Yeah,
so
and
people can specify whether they want to
I mean, True
formally report it.
Yeah, we wouldn't get to that stage where we're dealing with the end of an investigation. Our team, we review the report that's made, and then we would try and send it to the police force where the person has come, where the person should be.
Right.
So unfortunately, you know, the UK's got 43 different police forces, which is a massive problem.
Yes.
You know, trying to tie in, and you know, with the recent report is, you know, the head of hate crime, Mark Hamilton, is you know, asking 43 forces to try and work together. Yes. So unfortunately, depending on where you are likely to get a different service.
Well, I'm hoping Mark's going to turn up one of these days on my program, because I did say to him,
I'd like extremely busy man.
I know, but he's told me that when he's in Yorkshire next time, he will certainly come along. So I'm waiting for him to come to Yorkshire.
But you can imagine, you know, trying to ask 43, and you can only ask 43 forces to make, you know, to deal with hate crime in various ways. And there's some parts of the UK that have specialised hate crime officers, you know, that review all hate crime, and then there'll be forces that rely on the police officer that's just on the street. So,
and just to elaborate on what Mark is saying, that in this country we don't have one police force. Every county has its own police force, and every county's police chief constable is an independent, autonomous individual. They're very powerful people, and they are, in a way, managed to a certain extent by police and crime commissioners, but they're not responsible for the operational side of it. These are all technical stuff. And Mark Hamilton, who is the head of the hate crime, he's the representative of all the chief constables responsible for leading on hate crime, has a huge task on his hand to try and get the 43 chief constables to work from the same, if I use the phrase, same hymn sheet. And most of the time, believe you me, you can't get two brothers and two sisters or two friends to work together sometimes. How can you get 43 chief constables to work, all, you know, very powerful people to work together, is a miracle if he can do it, which he has done to a certain extent. So coming back, Mohammed, I mean, when somebody comes into you or rings you, what is the process that you take them through?
So we will, if they've asked for police involvement, then we will check with the police to see what they've done, first of all, to make sure they followed it up. We will then contact the victim to see what support they need, particularly if they haven't asked for police involvement, because particularly if it is a crime, then we want to encourage them to actually try and get it investigated, rather than sort of leave it as sort of we don't want police involvement. And then depending on what the victim needs, we will support them in that way. So if they want help in terms of chasing things up, or help with housing association, or anything else they need, we will support them with that. We will also follow it up with the police on a regular basis to see what updates and progress is happening to make sure that the victim is updated.
And how do you find your relationship with the police?
We have a very good relationship with the police. I think for us it's very important to work in partnership with both the police and also the local authority who we work with to ensure that we have that sort of ongoing sort of conversation around the incident, but also that critical and constructive approach as well to engage with the police in terms of where feedback on where things may not be working right, but at the same time where things are working right, provide that positive feedback, but also to actually sort of say, well, what is happening with this case? Can you feedback? Can you contact them? Or what's gone wrong here? So that we have a relationship with the police where it's constructive and forward-looking. And that's actually happened because in Bradford for the last sort of 6 years we've had a joint partnership hate crime strategy that's worked with the police, local authority, ourselves and others, victim support that we've put together in terms of what the key priorities are for the district.
Is victim support still going?
Yeah.
So I thought that sort of victim support was decimated as part of the austerity, you know.
No, they're still going.
The cutbacks.
They're still around.
Are they?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when I was working in Wakefield, we had a very nice victim support structure and team.
Yeah.
But by the time I left Wakefield, nothing to do with me, by the way, you know, it was decimated, and I think they joined it up across the 5 districts. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think there's different ways of working. In West Yorkshire, they provide the support for victims of crime across West Yorkshire.
Yeah, I mean, people who have not heard of victim support was set up to help people who are victims of crime, to help them navigate through the process of the criminal justice system, to provide moral support, to provide other support that the victim may need. And it used to be quite a large organisation in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, sorry, probably the 80s and the 90s, and then obviously with austerity and cutbacks it sort of shrunk to a certain level. But I mean, I'll come back to victim support in a while because I know the police and crime commissions have been putting some resources into victim support services across the country as well. But I mean, one of the biggest drawbacks or sort of fallout has been that people feel, as you said in one of your comments, less confident about reporting. And where do you think the system sometimes fails? I mean, we're going to be going for a short break, so we want to come back to that. Where do you think the system fails? I mean, the police are in a very difficult situation. Somebody reports an incident to you, and you investigate it. You've done your investigation. You then the police have to send the file to the Crown Prosecution Service. The Crown Prosecution Service will look at the file, and then will decide whether there's sufficient evidence to prosecute the perpetrator, if the perpetrator is known. And when they decide to do that, if they decide to do that, then it goes to the magistrates, where the case is heard in a court of law, and then the magistrates will then decide what justice needs to be dispensed. And throughout this process, to you and me, the ordinary person in the street, that is one holistic process. But to them, there are 3 different components. Do you find evidence? So, do you find evidence where the police have done their work? They've sent the file to the CPS, right? And they've then decided, nope, there's not insufficient evidence, or they then say, okay, there's sufficient evidence. Let's take it to court, and then it fails at the court for whatever reason. Does that have a damaging impact? Before you answer that, I've been told we have to go to a break. Just hold that thought. We'll come back to that, because I think that's where a lot of confidence is lost in the criminal justice system. We'll come back. I hope you followed all that through. This is an interesting area that we've touched upon this before around hate crime. Muslims are becoming more and more victims of hate crime at this moment. And as Mohammed said, with Brexit and the decision yesterday, we fear what might emerge. So we'll come back to this. Don't go away. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.